Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Produce Buzzers podcast. We are so happy you have joined us today, and I think you will be too after the show is over, because you will learn a lot about fresh fruits and vegetables, how to select and store them, how to prepare and cook them, and surprising facts about their history and origin. We hope it inspires you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, not only for your health, but also for your delight and pleasure as you explore their amazing world of taste and delicious flavors. Eating more of them will transform your life in so many positive ways. So settle back, relax, and get ready for another delicious adventure with the Produce Buzzers. Greetings, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, and welcome to another episode of the Produce Buzzers podcast. We are thrilled to be at the Southeast Produce Council Southern Exposure Expo this week. It is an annual trade show for growers, shippers, wholesalers, and retailers in the produce industry, usually held in the warmth and the sunshine of Florida. This year, we are in Orlando at the Walt Disney Resort. And this week, we will have several guests who are attending the show. They are all superstars of the produce industry, and we are very lucky to have one of those superstars here today. He is a superstar in a couple of different ways. He has been telling stories about the heroes who grow our fresh fruit and veggies for many years. And in the last few years, he has become a TV star talking about fresh produce. He is a longtime journalist and TV producer. He has written for the Chicago Tribune, the Washington Post, and the Huffington Post. But about 10 years ago, he left those little tabloids to write for a much more important news outlet, the Southeast Produce Weekly. And actually, the Southeast Produce Weekly was his creation. It's an online journal that talks about everything about produce, with a focus on farming and agriculture in the southeastern United States, but not exclusively. As the Southeast Produce Weekly grew, Chip was asked by the RFD TV network to start field reporting for their daily market report show every weekday morning. After a few years of that, he had an idea for his own TV series for the network that he titled Where the Food Comes From. Isn't that a great title? Everybody wants to know where the food comes from. Season 1 of the series launched in January of 2022, and they are now in production on Season 2. Please welcome Chip Carter to the show today. Chip, thanks for joining us.
Oh, Edwin, thank you for making that awkward. If I don't get to live up to that introduction, this might be a very short interview. But
well, as you know,
it's great to see you
great
again.
to have you here, and good to see you again. As you know, all of us grew up in the produce business. The three of us are siblings. I think you knew that. And Cynthia has worked with us in the past. And we love fresh fruits and veggies because of that. Tell us how you fell in love with fresh produce and started reporting on fresh fruit and telling stories about it.
I just grew up in it. I mean, my family on both sides, my grandparents, great-grandparents, were farmers. I mean, on my dad's side, they were gentlemen farmers, which means they paid the people to do the work and watch them
Right.
do it. And on my mom's side, they were dirt farmers, sharecroppers, cotton growers, whatever you could scratch out of the ground. You know, and my whole life, my dad had a garden that was 3 acres. Wherever we would move, he was a minister, and we'd go from one little southern town to another. And the farmers would all make fun of Dad for his garden, but it was always like 3 acres, and we ate out of it around the year. And my grandparents on my mother's side maintained a huge garden right up until shortly before they passed. And we lost my grandfather. He was 99, so he kept going for a while.
And we should say to our listeners, because this is what this show's about, eating all this fresh fruits and veggies, that got him his long life.
Look, that's not wrong. My mother is, she'll kill me, 84. She still lives in the metro Atlanta area. She is still one of the most active real estate brokers in metro Atlanta. She retired at the end of the year, she said. She's currently working 26 contracts, and all she eats is fruit and vegetables.
Wow, that's a great story.
And she's done that her whole life. She'll eat meat, but it's not because she doesn't want to eat. She just doesn't care for it.
Yeah. We should have had her on this show instead of you, Joe.
You should, absolutely. But, you know, she has developed a fondness, and this is my fault, for Publix chicken tenders. So that's the meat that she's eating. But, I mean, it's constantly fruit, veggies. She goes to Cracker Barrel, she gets the veggie plate. It doesn't matter where she is. You go to Chili's, and she's gonna have them make an off-menu veggie fajita for her.
Wow.
And she's never been in the hospital. Oh, I'm sorry. She was one time. She had a bicycle accident, and she lost her spleen.
Oh, wow.
When
That's
she
pretty
was
serious.
65 years old.
Oh, my.
So, you know.
She was riding a bicycle,
At
first
65 years old, had an accident so severe that she lost her spleen.
Wow.
And she just kept right on trucking. So I've seen firsthand the power of produce in lives. And, of course, growing up around it is just, you take it for granted as a child.
Yeah.
But we'd sit and shell Purple Hull peas till our thumbs were blue.
Yeah.
And we'd shuck corn so long, we'd sit on the back of pickup trucks shucking corn while the moms were inside taking it off the cob and cooking it down and canning it and putting it up. We'd sit there and peel corn so long we'd get bored and start corn wars with each other and everything. So it is very much, you know, agriculture is very much a part of my background. And it's not even something, even though my dad was a minister and my mother was an executive, we were never far from the farm. And I feel fortunate for that. But of course, growing up in the country like that, moving from one little small town to another, his dad went from one church to the next. By the time I turned 18, I knew enough about the small town and country and farming that all I wanted to do was get the hell out of there. So, and I knew that there were stories in me and stories I wanted to tell. And that's what I did. In fact, when I graduated high school, my mother gave me a suitcase, a Bible with $100 in it, which I didn't find for 2 years.
Oh, no.
Oh, man, that's the best. I didn't crack that thing open, did you?
Well, eventually, and this is really bad, I called home and said, Mom, I need some money. She says, you should read your Bible. I'm like, oh, man, I know Mom believes God can fix everything, but I need about $100 right now, you know, unless he makes it drop out of the sidewalk. She's like, read your Bible. I'm like, Mom, she said, just open your Bible and start turning the pages. I'm like, okay. She said, I love you. Bye. I'm like,
That is a great story.
The Lord really does work in mysterious ways. So, but the other thing that she gave me was a little plaque. And there was like a old-time vaudeville guy on there with the straw boater hat and the cane and the striped shirt. And he was shuffling off the stage with a big grin on his face. And it said, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with BS. And I looked at Mom, I'm like, what is that supposed to mean? I was offended. She said, oh, honey, no. She said, you don't understand. That's your gift. So
was it the letters BS or was it the word bullshit?
that was that one. It was that one, which is why it made it all the more remarkable coming from Mom. I mean,
yeah.
you know.
Right.
And this is a woman who was, I mean, she grew up. When she was 3 years old, she had to pick a sack of cotton as tall as she was before she could go play.
Wow.
So, and then flash forward a few years, she was invited by the Carter administration to Washington, D.C. to be on the council headed by Senator Sam Nunn that founded the Small Business Administration.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, she was one of the first female director-level executives in the city of Atlanta. And she's just been an incredible inspiration. The bar is raised very high.
Yeah.
At 79, again, I keep throwing these ages around and I'm going to get murdered. She was 79. My stepfather was 84. And on the same day, my mother met the vice president of Liberia, a woman who was visiting in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And they got together for some church thing. And they started talking. And the vice president of Liberia told Mom how the warlords control the food supply in Liberia, and that there were 88 orphanages that were getting no food. And on the same day, my stepfather was out somewhere else, met a man who owned rice farms in Cambodia, could not find a market for his product, could not find anything to do with this rice, My mother and stepfather put together a deal at 79 and 84.
Wow.
And said, we're going to bring this rice to Liberia to feed these orphanages.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And the Liberian government said, okay, we'd love that, but you have to come with it. And so they spent a few weeks going on an armed convoy through the jungle from village to village, delivering rice to these small towns. Now, here's the really miraculous part of all of that.
as if that wasn't.
I told you about Mom losing her spleen.
Yeah.
That means she's got really no immune system.
Oh, right.
She can't have vaccines. She doesn't have the current one. I wish she would get it anyway. But so when she got ready to go to Africa, the doctor and even the CDC, they're like, we can't immunize you. We can't give you anything. And we've got to tell you, you should not go.
Right.
She packed her suitcase full of Snickers bars and toilet papers like she does every time she goes to Africa.
Snickers bars.
Hey, well, that's what she lived on, Snickers bars and peanut butter crackers. I swear.
Wait a minute, you told us it was produce.
All right, in Africa, she was not secure of the confidence in her produce supply. And
Right.
I see. Okay.
And chocolate.
Chocolate is
a vegetable.
And there's some
fruit.
peanuts
well, they
in
got
the
nuts.
Snickers.
That's right. You got peanuts.
We got it covered.
There you
And
go.
sugar is really a produce item.
Did you know Georgia grows over half the peanuts in the United States?
Wow.
We just brought it around the produce there.
Yeah, that's right.
So-
Good job.
But that's so it was so she went completely unvaccinated. She went and stared Ebola in the face and hantavirus in the face and malaria and everything else. And it wasn't her first mission trip to Africa.
Wow.
But she did that at 79 years old. And everybody was mad at me. They're kind of like, aren't you going to stop your mother from going to Africa? I'm like, are you kidding me? They're like, do you want her to go? I said, no. But why would I stop? And why would she stop? Everybody tells her all the time, you got to quit working. She's like, why?
No,
That's why I
great.
say, go, Mom. So the bar is set high. So it's no surprise that I'm just now getting around to launching my first national television show at this age.
But when you told her to go, did you ask her to renew the life insurance policy?
That's mean, Rick. Oh, no. Mom's too good.
Yeah.
Too good. They're too good.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, you are a great storyteller, and so tell us about where the food comes from
Yeah,
and
I
the
didn't
stories.
even answer the original question, did I?
Yeah, you did. You did.
I'm
You
talking
did.
in ellipses.
No, you
we're
got it.
talking in
You
big,
got it.
not even circles, it's
you-
big elliptical orbits.
You told us about the connection, which I don't think I fully understood. I've known you for a few years, but I didn't realize that you grew up and so connected to the farming.
Yeah,
so that was good to
absolutely.
hear.
I mean, so-
and that was the point of my question.
And
But,
I never lost that, even though I went on and had my big city media career. Started with the Associated Press in Atlanta covering sports, and kept my hands in that for a long time. Met everybody in the world. And then in 1990, I signed on with Chicago Tribune to write a syndicated column that for the next 19 years ran around the world. And it was all about video games. It was the first national mainstream media presence devoted to video games in the United States.
And that was Super Mario Brothers?
Yeah, that was that same era. That's exactly when that was. And then probably about 2005, my son came home from school one day. I was a full-time single dad from the time that he was 2. And he came home from school and he walked through the door and I said, "Hey, honey, you want a Coke?" He said, "No thanks, Dad." I'm like, "Why not? It's delicious." He said, "Well, it's got that high fructose corn syrup in it." And I said, "Yeah, it's delicious." He said, "But Dad, your body doesn't know what that is. It doesn't recognize it, doesn't know how to process it, doesn't know what to do with it." He said, me and my friends have decided we're not going to put it in our diets anymore.
How old was he?
15.
15.
15.
Wow.
This was 2005.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I started talking to him and all his other friends. One thing I've always done, when I was young, I sought out the counsel of people who were older than me and I paid attention to what they said. Then as that coin began to flip, and even now, I seek out the counsel of people younger than me and I pay attention to what they say.
Absolutely.
They'll tell you where the world is going, and people complain all the time, "Oh, these kids, this generation." We've raised a great generation.
Yeah.
We have raised a great generation. I'm so proud of our kids.
Yep.
They're moving the world forward in ways that are beyond some of our comprehension.
Yep.
But they're doing all the right things, and I couldn't be prouder of them. And one thing that we've seen, and this started, it wasn't just my son and his friends. That generation that was coming along in their teens realized they had no connection whatsoever to their food. Now, I had made sure that my son did, and that was part of why we moved from Georgia to Florida. You know, our soccer team that I coached when he was a kid playing soccer was actually on 3 sides orange groves. So, and the strawberries grew in the backyard, and just everywhere we went around us, there was just food. And it's just, to me, it's still just a miraculous sight.
Yeah.
When you look and you see there's food on a tree.
Right.
There's food coming out of dirt.
Yeah.
Which is the last thing you want in your mouth. It's almost the last thing you want in your mouth is dirt. Right now, we're just really getting people to understand.
Well, I love what you were saying about the miracle of seeing the food
It's
grow.
just extraordinary. And I mean, I've felt that way my whole life. You know, the longer I'm out there with my nose in the dirt, Edwin, the more comfort I have that there's some kind of grand scheme behind all of this. Because I don't think you can be that close to nature. And I think that's why most farmers are so very spiritual and are so very faithful.
Yeah.
You just can't be that close to the miracles of nature and the miracles of life and not think, this didn't happen by accident. You know?
That's a good point.
Explain the strawberry. Explain why the food grows seasonally. Why is it warm in Florida, and then it's warm in Georgia, and then it's warm in the Carolinas, and it gets warm all the way up to Maine.
Right.
So everybody keeps getting fed.
Yeah.
It's the biggest miracle of our time. And I think anybody who was ever around farming or gardening has that same thing. I mean, it's just that connection is so elemental.
Right.
It's so elemental.
You've interviewed a lot of farmers.
Oh, gosh.
Tell us your most incredible story of a farmer that you've interviewed recently.
Gosh, I mean, it's so many. And you look at how we define farming now.
Right.
We just had a couple of episodes back to back. We spend a lot of time, the show is really focused on conventional farming, and we're centered around the farm. But we go up and downstream from the farm to show all the other jobs, all these invisible hands that everybody who's in the produce industry knows really well, or anybody who's in agriculture at all. You know, it's not just the farm. I mean, it would just sit there on the farm and rot without the research side, without the input side, without all of that stuff, the field would never produce a crop.
Yeah.
So it has to start before that. It starts before it gets in the field. It starts before it gets to the farm. And that's when we never say farm to fork on this show. We say laboratory to legislature. Because that's what it is. That's what it
interesting.
is. And that's what we're trying to show is that full scope, that full scope of production.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Laboratory. I understand the laboratory part.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, we did an episode on berries, and we got with Gary Wisnatsky and Wish Farms, the big Florida grower. They really revolutionized the industry down there. So we told their family story. Started with Gary's granddad in a push cart in New York City 120 years ago.
Wow.
So many of the stories of our industry start out that way.
Yeah.
With an immigrant who was peddling produce in a city somewhere, and that led to other opportunities.
Right.
And that's the Wisnatskys wound up in Florida, and they become hugely successful. So we were telling their story. We were telling the berry story. At the same time, we wanted people to understand all of the thought and work that goes into this. You're not just grabbing seeds off a strawberry and throwing them in the ground. So we went up to the University of Florida. We went and met with one of the world's leading berry specialists, and he sits there and shows us the whole process. He's deconstructing a blueberry, pulling the seeds out of it with forceps, and you're sitting there going, those are seeds? I didn't ever really know what that was.
Tiny little seeds.
And then he's taking the flowers apart. He's scraping pollen out of the flowers onto his hand, and then he's hand pollinating each little seedling. This is just at the University of Florida Research Center, where all they're doing is testing new varieties of blueberries. This was only blueberries.
Wow.
In this one greenhouse, there were 23,000 plants. He had to do that same process 23,000 times. And that's just to make a room full of potential varieties that might become a commercial blueberry.
Right.
So who would ever think that when you go to the supermarket and you pick up a clamshell of blueberries, somewhere some guy was sitting there pulling apart 23,000 blueberries and 23,000 blueberry flowers and scraping pieces and putting them all together and then making the next generation of blueberries. So we show that piece of it too, you know. There's no one format to the show. Not every show has science in it. Some of the shows have science where it makes sense. You know, but we're showing all kind of things. We've got an episode called A Little TNL, which is not as racy as it sounds.
TNL, T and L?
T and L,
Okay.
yeah, which is transportation and logistics.
Okay.
So we tell the story of Terminal State Farmers Market. Like when we do it at the Atlanta State Farmers Market, Commissioner Gary Black, Commissioner of Agriculture, came out and gave us a tour of the Atlanta State Farmers Market just to explain to people, you don't even know these things are here in your community. You go to farmers market on Saturday morning where you're buying stuff that most of the people who are there went by the state terminal market and picked it up and took it out of a box and put it in a basket and marked the price up 400%. Then they don't understand. They don't even know that the state markets exist and what a part of the food supply chain that they are.
Yeah.
So we go from there. We go to the Nicky Gregory Company on the Atlanta State Farmers Market. They're a regional distributor. They go overnight throughout the Southeast, and they carry hundreds of catalog items. You will never see their name in a supermarket. They repack for other people, and they buy from other growers, and they supply other stores. They're a regional distributor. And then we roll all the way up to Raleigh, North Carolina with the L&M companies,
Right.
which controls their own fleet of hundreds. I think it's somewhere around 1,200 trucks that are on the road 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. There's L&M trucks in 48 states. So how do you keep track of all of that? How do you keep all that on time? How do you keep that cold chain protected?
Right.
What goes into all that? People never stop to think about those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's really fun is finding the new stuff that people haven't seen before. Like in that same berry episode I was talking about, we did a segment on pine berries,
All right.
which I don't know if y'all have even seen those yet.
I recently found out about them and bought a pack just a couple of weeks ago.
Man, they're fabulous.
Yeah.
They're fabulous.
Yeah.
But they're a white strawberry, basically, is what it is. But it's very different flavor profile.
Right.
And I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, what did y'all breed a new berry? What is this? You know, he's like, no, it's been around for ages. It's been around for eons.
Yeah.
Just nobody's cultivated it and sold it. So now it's coming in. That episode aired, and by far the biggest feedback. And this is the same episode where the man was scraping apart 23,000 flowers and blueberries with his bare hands. The biggest reaction we've gotten to that is, what are those white strawberries, pine berries? What is this? What is this thing? So we're actually going to go back and take a deeper dive in pine berries.
Well, you should because I had heard about them, and years ago we used to do marketing work for Driscoll's.
Yeah.
And I remember they didn't call them. They might have been called pine berries, but I don't remember them using that name. But they were telling me that the sweetest strawberries in the world are pure white,
Yeah.
and they grow up in high alpine regions primarily. But so. When I saw these a couple of weeks ago, I bought a pack and I ate them. They were fantastic. So yes, we need to tell our listeners about these berries, because if you walk into the store and see those berries sitting next to the red ones,
Right.
you would think, oh, those are you wouldn't touch them.
Especially when you see the price tag on
Yeah,
them.
that's right.
Well, I got to pay more for the ones that didn't get done yet. You know?
So you alluded to the technology that's changing
Oh, yeah.
agriculture and farming.
Oh,
What are some of the most surprising things you've seen other than people doing 23,000 different pollinating blueberries?
That was very low tech.
I've read and you.
Very low tech.
Yeah, that's true. We're talking about robots picking things. What's the most surprising thing to you that you've come across or that you're aware of?
Oh, look, I mean, understand that when I came back, my goal when I came into the industry in 2009 was to come in, gear up, and start making the TV show.
Yeah.
And I came back and I realized, just like I called Mom and said, Mom, I figured out, I remember where they left all the good people. You know? So, and I knew I was back home, and I was like, all right, this is there's something to this. These stories are real.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to get a TV show in my life, this is going to be it.
Right.
And I started that process then, but that was 2009. So the people I knew, they were the same wonderful people I grew up with. But how they do the job that they do was so transformed from 100 years ago when I left.
Right.
I hadn't been back to a farm since then, except taking the kids to pick blueberries or something, going, hey, look, isn't this fun? Well, can we go home now? You know,
You should have brought Cynthia with you because she loves to pick blueberries.
I thought it was
I
important.
thought you would never remember that.
Yeah. In one of our
It was
episodes, Cynthia talked about her experience picking blueberries, and she said, "No, I'll pay the high price."
Right, and
now."
that's what I'm saying. I wanted to teach kids about agricultural labor, and that there's a reason.
Yeah.
And we spent a whole lot of time on this show focusing on how much hand labor is involved.
Yeah.
Like every Vidalia onion out of the countless millions that are sold is set in a field by hand,
Right.
harvested by hand, and clipped by hand.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and there's still so much hand labor in all of this, and a lot of that is because fruit and vegetables are soft. You know, you're not worried about hurting wheat or something like that. You can have a GPS combine go do that all day long.
Right.
But when I got back over here, I realized that as well as I knew the people, I didn't understand the technology, and I didn't understand agriculture, and I was in no way, shape, form, or fashion had any credibility to go start a TV show about the subject. So I spent the next few years traveling, and when this other trade publication would, you know, I started out as a Florida editor. Next thing I know, they were asking me, well, would you go to Georgia too? I'm like, well, I'm from there and I got family there. That sounds great.
Yeah.
And then I actually read in their paper that I had been named Southeastern editor, and that's how I found out. So, and then,
At least it wasn't you fired.
yeah, right, yeah, Carter fired from, yeah, that was.
People have found out that way.
That would, yeah, whoa, that's a hard way to do it. But yeah, I was surprised, but I was like, oh, that's cool. So,
Yeah.
You know, when you were moving north from the Atlanta farmers market, you skipped the Columbia, South Carolina farmers market, and Edwin and I both used to buy produce off of that farmers market to sell at our retail produce market in Charlotte, and we'd have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Sure.
and drive from Charlotte down to the Columbia market, and all those farmers would be lined up in the farmer's shed with all their produce: peaches, okra, greens, anything that you can think of in the vegetable category.
Don't forget watermelons. That was
Oh yeah.
yeah,
fun loading the
And they
watermelons. as
still
well.
are at these state terminal markets. I mean, a lot of times a year, especially in Atlanta, the open air stalls are at the bottom of the hill, and you can go in and get whatever local growers are bringing in their pickup trucks to buy, and it's some of the best food in the world.
Yeah.
But you
But
know,
you didn't skip the Columbia market. You
no,
said,
we didn't skip the Columbia market. I love the Columbia market. I met Famous Amos at the South Carolina State Farmers Market in Columbia.
Who's Famous Amos?
Famous Amos, the cookie guy.
Oh,
Remember the
cookies.
cookies
Oh, yeah.
from the 80s? Famous
Edwin,
Amos and
Yeah.
Wally
shame
Amos.
on you.
Cynthia, you're my cookie supplier.
We're
Why
talking
would I do
produce.
Famous
here.
Amos?
We were thinking produce, not cookies.
Thank you, Rick. That's where I'm coming from. This is a produce show. We shouldn't be hearing about cookies. No, I
Did you
mean,
meet
he was
Charlie Jenkins at the Columbia Farmers Market? Charlie.
probably, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, he's the old watermelon guy that you could get the best watermelons from, and he just pay him cash money, and he'd keep you in good watermelon.
That's the secret to farming. You get people to pay you in cash money. You can do about anything you want. So no, I was there. Wally Amos, Famous Amos, became a huge celebrity in the 70s and 80s, and just a financial giant because of his chocolate chip cookies. He had a recipe that was
remember
really,
that.
really great, and he wound up in L.A. and celebrities were endorsing his cookies, and it was a really big deal.
But he was from Columbia.
About 4 or 5 years ago, I'm walking in the State Farmers Market with somebody, and there was a gentleman walking ahead of us, heading down the hall to the bakery there at the farmers market. And
They didn't have a bakery when we were there.
well, you
That's
should
something
go.
new.
You should go back because we're walking through there, and my friend says, "Well, there goes Famous Amos," and I look. And I said, "Ha, yeah, that guy does kind of look like Famous Amos." He said, "Well, he should. It's Famous Amos." And I went, what is Famous Amos doing at the South Carolina State Farmers Market? And Famous Amos kind of fell on hard times. He sold his cookie brand, and he had some issues. So he was struggling. He fell on hard times. And being a son of South Carolina, they wanted to bring him home. So the governor brought him back to be the official cookie maker for South Carolina. So he's home making cookies at the South Carolina State Farmers Market.
And he
Yeah,
could
there
use
was
his-
no commercial, no touristy type things when we used to buy off that market.
And that's not touristy at all. That's just where Famous Amos works now. That's just it. You know, and I'll take you up to Raleigh. We'll go to the farmers market there. One of the greatest restaurants in the world.
Really?
Oh man, you talking about good eats, good old Southern home cooking? It's amazing what they do up there. Then let's go up to Philadelphia. Let's go look at the Philadelphia terminal market.
Right.
All indoors, which when I first went there, I'm kind of like, why is it all indoors? And somebody said, hey, Cracker, have you ever been here in January? I'm like, oh, I get it. So, I mean, that's a mind-boggling facility.
Yeah.
And you look at that and you realize that all of these things that we're talking about are just fractional, tiny parts. And that everything that's in that building is going to be gone in days and be replaced.
Can't be held
It is
back.
constantly on the move. It's a perishable industry. So, you know, then let's go down to Florida. Let's go to the Pompano and Miami farmers markets.
We
And
used to buy
let's
some of the
ask,
best
what
tomatoes
the
off
hell
of that
happened there?
Right.
What's going on there? Come on, Florida, step up your game. You know?
Yeah, my dad used to go down to the Pompano market, and he'd haul tomatoes back to Charlotte, and they were some of the best vine. You could get some really good vine ripe tomatoes.
Yeah,
at that
my
time.
guess is they still haven't painted the place since then, Rick. So
Now, Cynthia's
push a broom around there.
Cynthia is a longtime veteran of the Hunts Point market
Yeah.
in New York City. She worked there. She used to do a lot of work for produce suppliers on that market.
Because when I started working with Teresa with the Nolan Network, I was doing tech service for the Nolan Network for different produce commodity groups. So that's where I went primarily instead of going and seeing the retailers. And I fell in love with the charm and the grittiness and everything of all the terminal markets. I mean, I liked LA. Jessup Market was lovely.
Yeah.
Maryland.
Yeah, I mean, we had great lunches with at Picacci,
Yeah,
and then
that's true.
you go to the terminal market in New York, and oh my gosh, it was like, you know, where you'd eat your next meal
Yeah.
because they all had private chefs, and it just was, how can I forget that?
If you really want some great food internationally, go to the Paris Farmers Market. They serve wine with their food. It's really, really good.
I mean, look, can we not extrapolate? I mean, it's grapes. It's not really processed. It's just squeezed. I mean, it's not, you know.
That's true.
Yeah.
Fresh.
I think it ought to be part of the produce industry.
Sounds
We should
like
draft beer
an
and wine
episode
in there.
for Where the Food Comes From in
You know
Paris.
what? We oh yeah, we're working on our
Season
international
10 or
budget right now. we're still looking. My wife is holding me to a promise to host an episode out in Napa Valley, and she wants to call it Where the Wine Comes From.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know where it comes from, but I know where it goes.
I know where it's going. But I want to go back, Cynthia, to what you were saying about these humble, rough-edged geniuses.
It's just a lovely community of these just rough and tumble, often uneducated, back when I was doing it, brilliant men that put this.
Right, and that's so you were hooked up with the mafia boys at Hunts Point. Okay, if I disappear, send out an alert because that's what it's going to be. But when you say rough and tumble, but also brilliant,
Yes.
it's extraordinary to me, and it's one of my favorite things in the world is to play country dumb. You know, everybody hears the accent and they're kind of like, "Oh, okay, bozo," you know.
Yeah, right.
It is so common in my world, and it's like I was saying, that country dumb is just the kind of thing people hear, and you hear ways, especially in the Southeast. Some of our farmers talk, browsing jam down to the whole thing, come out around the corner there, and we was plowing that, and is just dropped down, and you're, I don't even know what you're saying. And then, you know, I met a farmer like that one time, and we met at a restaurant, and somebody wanted me to introduce me to him. And he came shuffling in. He's just filthy. His boots were untied, and he's wearing a jacket, and it's 100 degrees, and he smells of field and hay and manure and cigarettes, and, you know, sits down. He's still got his, like, ear flap hunting cap on and everything. And I'm just like, oh, my God. And we start talking, and he's just like, well, yeah, well, you know, I got a couple of ideas. And he reaches down and he picks up a 3-ring binder that's about 8 inches thick. And it's all handwritten notes, and it's mathematical equation. He was bringing a new crop to the United States, and he sourced it from 6 different areas to make a new greens mix. He had done all of the homework, all the nutritional, all the math, everything by hand in that notebook. And talking to that man, if you met that man on the street or if you met him at the grocery store, you would go, this guy's an idiot. And you would you're not having a conversation with that person on first meeting and going, I'm talking to a genius. And you have to talk to them for a minute to understand how brilliant these people are who make this industry run.
Yeah.
This is all part of the picture, is meeting people like that and learning to take people at face value and to understand what they're contributing and to not judge and not be fast to judge.
Right.
And it's real eye-opening, and that's why I want these people on television speaking for themselves.
Yeah.
And my whole goal is to peel back the labels. When most people walk through the produce department, they just see brand names. I walk through there and I go, there's Bob, there's Sally, there's Cindy, there's Tommy, there's Joe, there's, you know. Yeah. And I'm like, I've been to their farms. I've been to many of their homes and sat down at their dinner tables and had dinner with them. So that's my goal. I know every farmer has a story, whether they know it or not. Every farmer has a story, and I'm dedicated to telling those stories.
I think that's another great thing about your show, is that I think a lot of people in the country, consumers, they've bought into the myth that it's big agriculture, big. All the small farms are gone, all the family farms are gone, but they haven't, and they're coming back, a resurgence. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, and if there is one overarching theme to this show, is that what we eat, where the food comes from. When we say that, people are like, oh, it's going to be all about health. It's going to all be about this. No, I mean, it's about food. But, I mean, it makes more sense for us to stay in our lane and look at this. Why do we want to go show you how sugar cereal is made? Yeah. We might do that later someday.
Right. Yeah, you know, well, it's where the food comes from.
Yeah.
It's not just fruits and veggies. Right. We understand that, and that's fantastic. It's still
going to mostly be fruits and veggies.
Well, we're glad about that.
Those are the really exciting stories. I mean, that's where all the innovation is.
Yeah.
That's where things are. And, I mean, look, I'm not anti-processed food. I understand. It's a giant world.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to eat. And, I mean, there are some issues that are close to my heart that I hope we're going to be exploring soon in seasons.
For example?
Well, I've spent a lot of time in college classrooms talking about this subject. I get asked to lecture, and I'm available and don't charge money. It's really how I developed the final framework for the show. After years of research and travel and going everywhere in North America for extended periods of time, multiple times, Rio Grande Valley, California, Canada, you name it, brother, like Brother Johnny Cash says, I've been there, man. I've been everywhere, man.
Right.
I've been everywhere, man. So it's really how I developed the final framework of what became the show and what issues we were going to deal with in the show was how these college classes are reacting. And we think of college classes still as being 18 to 22-year-olds, but that's an old-time model.
Right.
And so it's all ages, all levels, all societal levels. And so many of those people in those classrooms were single working mothers who were back in school to try to build a better life for their families.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, and they're kind of like, how are we supposed to afford this? They're like, a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese costs $1, and it feeds me and my kids. And one big apple costs $1. What am I supposed to do? What are they supposed to do?
That's a good point.
What are they supposed to do? How are we going to deal with that? That's something that's got to happen.
Yep.
We talk about
It's
food.
shameful that we throw away so much produce, and there's no excuse that anybody should be hungry in the United States of
We
America.
just went and did an episode with Feeding America and Society of St. Andrew, L&M Farms and Smith Farms in Palatka. We went through how farmers do work with Feeding America. It's amazing how many farmers don't know that Feeding America is there to keep their surplus produce from going to waste.
Oh, right.
And it's not at no cost to the farmer. It's at least an offset. If you don't want to make it a straight tax deductible donation, they'll pay you. They will actually pay you. And Society of St. Andrew will come and glean your fields after the harvest goes through. About like 40% of what's planted in the fields never makes it to market.
40%.
40%.
Wow.
We learned that on that shoot.
Yeah.
So, and we talk about the food deserts in the inner city, and we know they're there. We know it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Get in the car and go out to the country with me. Let's go out to small town America. You tell me where they get their food. Talking about food deserts. Dollar General has become rural America's grocery store.
Interesting.
So the people live next to a farm and they can't get fresh food.
Right.
People forget this is not Mr. McGregor's world. You don't have peas and carrots and taters and onions and corn all growing in the same place.
Right.
If you do live next to a farm, it might be 1,200 acres of onions. So,
Right. Can't live off of onions.
So how do we make this more equitable moving forward? How do we guarantee access to fresh, nutritious food? We now know that the food that we should be eating and the food that our farmers are growing, that is not big agribusiness. This is not, the men in dark suits in the room going, ha, 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 we want to poison you all.
Right.
These are families. These are people who care very, very deeply about what they're doing. And they are really, really working to feed the world. We got to find ways to make it easier for them to do what they do and feed everybody.
Very well said. That's great. A great conclusion for today's episode. But I hope that you'll come back and we can dig into some of these other things. Very knowledgeable. Okay. Wait a minute. Teresa's trying to get my attention. Teresa, what do you have for us?
I have a pun.
Oh, yes. Every episode, Chip,
I'm a huge fan of puns.
we have a segment called Homegrown. And Teresa gives us one of her really bad puns. We try to guess the answer first. But once she does give the answer, we all have to groan really
Okay,
loud. We
let's
have
go.
to do
I'm ready for this.
The homegrown, and we have to be ready to groan. Okay. Okay, Teresa, what is our pun of the day?
How did the farmer realize he had a magic tractor?
Okay, wait a minute. How did the farmer realize he had a magic tractor? Any guesses here? Magic tractor.
I'm running all the name brands through.
Because a traveling salesman stopped for the night and
Plugged in the milking machine, so don't go behind that curtain. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with Rick. I vote Rick. That's 2 for Rick's theory. 2 for Rick's theory. Does it have anything to do with a equipment manufacturer's name?
No.
Okay, I'm out. Then that's
A magic tractor.
yeah. Let's do it like the old To Tell the Truth show, where everybody takes guesses as we go.
That's
You
what
can ask
we
a
try to
question
do
to get
that.
a clue.
I thought it was
Is it
going to
bigger
be.
than a bread box?
I thought it was going to be "Pull Me Closer, John Deere," but that doesn't work.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that's an old joke.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Tiny Dancer. I don't know.
or he got one of those John Deere letters.
Only if you're dyslexic. I'm sorry. Sometimes I just can't.
Okay, Teresa, let us know. We're dying to know how he knew he had a magic tractor.
The farmer found out he had a magic tractor when it turned into a field.
You're outdoing
And
yourself,
on that
Teresa. That is, you've outdone yourself.
Wow, it had been such a lovely day.
That might have been the worst one yet, right?
Oh, I hope so.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Chip, for taking
Thank
time
you.
That
out of
was
your
great.
very busy schedule. And congratulations on the show. And
Thursdays, 9:30 p.m. Eastern on the
That's right.
RFD TV network. If you can't get it in your house, give me a call, send me an email.
Okay.
Go to wherethefoodcomesfrom.com.
All
I'll
right.
find a way for you to watch this
Yeah,
show.
wherethefoodcomesfrom.com. Look for it on the RFD TV network. Thursdays, 9:30?
Thursdays, 9:30 p.m.
Fantastic.
Airs again at 1:30, so West Coast gets a couple of nice exposure
Okay.
opportunities.
Right, very good. All right, well, congrats, good luck, and we hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Produce Buzzers podcast, brought to you by Produce Buzz, the gathering place for lovers of fresh fruits and veggies. We hope you were entertained a bit and educated a lot about fresh produce. Be sure to join us next time, and please tell your friends to do so as well. Like, share, and comment on our Produce Buzz Facebook page. And check out our website at www.producebuzz.com. There you will find articles about fresh fruits and veggies, how to select, store, and prepare them, as well as lots of interesting facts about all the wonderful bounty the earth provides for us. Until next time, be fruitful and don't forget to veg out.